Good evening, everyone. My name is Carlos. I'm studying for the MBGE here in Tennessee. I'm gonna read out the chapter and record it for me to be able to listen to it since I learned by audio. I'm audible person. I learn from like when I hear things. So I also record it and upload it to my channel here for anybody to access it. So rules of the Tennessee Board of Pharmacy, Chapter 1140-04. 1140-04 applicability. A pharmacy providing products and services to an institutional facility and alternative infusion pharmacy practice site shall be subject to all rules of the board depending upon services provided. 1140-0402 personnel. Pharmacies, a pharmacist in charge of practice of pharmacy and performance of supportive pharmacy personnel associated with any institutional facility shall be under the directions of supervision and responsibility of the pharmacist in charge. The pharmacist in charge shall also be responsible for the dispensing, distribution, compounding, storage, and procurement of prescriptions and non-prescription drugs used throughout the institutional facility. Policies and procedures defining the scope of pharmacy practice, collaborative working relationships, and responsibility of the pharmacist and supportive personnel, and the safe use of and management of drugs, devices, and related materials shall be established by the pharmacist in charge. Pharmacist in charge or designee shall participate in the institutional drug policy committee, which is served to ensure rational drug use, patient care evaluation process related to the drug utilization and effectiveness, drug delivery, device selection and evaluation system, and educational activity for the safe and appropriate use of drugs, which will assess the quality of services and products product provided and document actions taken. Policies and procedures as indicated in this chapter shall be written and shall be made available to the board. The pharmacist in charge shall be supported by a sufficient number of pharmacists to provide appropriate practice of pharmacy for the patient served by the institution facility. Employment of pharmacists by the institution facility shall be determined by the pharmacist in charge. Consultant pharmacist. An institutional facility may utilize a consultant pharmacist who may or may not be independent of the pharmacy practice site, who shall provide patient care service, which is include but not limited to 1. Development, interpretation, communications of drug, device, and related materials, orders, and health information. 2. Provide consultation on matters pertaining to efficient drug distribution system, proper drug selection, rational and safe drug use, and drug therapy assessment. 3. Evaluations of patients' drug therapy to maximize outcome, including effective communications with prescribing practitioners and other healthcare professionals. 4. Effective counseling of patients or patient's attorney, the healthcare other caregiver. 5. Service on committees or governing bodies. 6. Providing and service education programs for members of health care team. Supportive personnel, the pharmacist in charge shall be assisted by a sufficient number of pharmacy technicians as defined. Pharmacy, in turn, other subordinate personnel as may require to operate the pharmacy competently, safely, adequately to meet needs of the patient served by the institutions. The supervisions, all the activities associated with the practice of pharmacy and the operations of the pharmacy at the specific institutional pharmacy practice site shall be supervised by a sufficient number of pharmacists to ensure that all functions and activities are performed competently, safely, and without risk or harm to the patients. 1140-0403, physical requirement. The area, institutionals, or alternative infusion pharmacy practice site shall have a sufficient floor space allocated to it to ensure that medical and prescription orders are prepared and dispensed in sanitary, well-lighted, and enclosed spaces. An institutional pharmacy shall also have sufficient counter space or other suitable work models to ensure that medical and prescriptions order are prepared and dispensed in an orderly manner. The equipment and materials, the pharmacy practice site shall have sufficient equipment and physical facilities for the practice of pharmacy. This shall include, but not limited to, hot and cold running water, so that's similar to the community pharmacy, refrigerated storage space, frozen storage space as appropriate, and adequate information system. The storage, in terms of storage, all prescriptions, drugs, and devices and related materials shall be stored in designated area within the pharmacy practice site, which are sufficient to ensure proper sanitation, temperature, light, ventilation, moisture control, and segregations and security. For alcohols and flammables. Alcohols and flammables shall be stored in an area that shall at minimum meet basic local building code requirement for the storage of volatiles, such as laws or ordinances and regulations that may apply. Security. A pharmacy practice site shall be capable of being locked. A pharmacy practice site shall be capable of being locked to prevent access by unauthorized personnel. The pharmacist must be accessible within the institutional facility where an institutional pharmacy practice site is located. And when no pharmacist is present at institutions, the pharmacy practice site must be kept closed and securely locked, except as provided. Upon request, the board may waive selected portions of these requirements, so long as any waiver granted is consistent with the board authority under Tennessee code annotated. 1140-0404, prescriptions order. Pharmacist shall review all prescriptions ordered before the drug is first dispensed. In the event that medications available in the institutional facility are ordered and administered before the pharmacist review, the order shall be reviewed by the pharmacist in a timely manner, which this is an important point here. The pharmacist shall have access to the patient's medication record. The original order must be maintained in readily retrievable manner. This is good to know here, readily retrievable manner, according to the pharmacy practice site policy for 2 years. So this 2 years number, it's most really accurate for most things. All the prescriptions kept in the institutional pharmacy, like Infusion pharmacy or like actual hospital, for 2 years. Upon request, the board may waive selected portion of these requirements so long as any waiver granted is consistent with the board authority under Tennessee code annotated, Title 63. 1140 or 405, distribution and control of drugs. The pharmacist charge or designee, in conjunction with appropriate committee of the facility, shall be responsible for approving policy for the distribution and control of drugs within the facility. So the BIC is the charge for distribution and control of drugs here, but the policies. So BIC is in charge for most of the policy. The process shall be established to provide for the safe and efficient distribution of drugs and for the provision of pharmaceutical care, and shall include but not limited to: one, drug dispensed from the pharmacy for subsequent administration to a patient shall be appropriately identified with the name and location of the patient and the name and strength of the drug. The pharmacist's charge is responsible for the development and maintenance of an audit trails on drugs dispensed. The prescription order shall be recorded on the patient medication profile that will be maintained during the patient treatment. This profile shall include the date of the prescription order, the name of the dose, the name and dosage form of the drug, and the dose and administration's frequency. For the facility distribution system may be based on combinations of process that will ensure compliance with the federal and state guidelines, such as emergency kit, crash cart, floor stock system, automated dispensing devices, medication cards, and after-hours procedures for pharmacy site access. I will request here the Board of Pharmacy may waive selected portion of these requirements as long as the waiver granted is consistent with the board authority on the Tennessee Code annotated. Medication card 1140 or 406. Drug distributed from the pharmacy to other area of so the medication card is just used to distribute these drugs to other area of the institution facility, maybe stored in medicines cabinet or drug card, which shall be kept secured unless in use by the nursing staff or other authorized personnel. Access to the medications card shall be defined by the facility policies. It's recommended that drugs be dispensed in unit dose packaging. It's good points here. And medications for each patient shall be distributed and stored in separate trays. So every patient separate tray, drawer, compartment, or container assigned to the residence and bearing the resident's name and location. Upon request of the board may waive selected portion of these requirements so long as any waiver granted is consistent with the board authority and the Tennessee Board Code annotated. Lower stock drugs. The pharmacist in charge or designee in conjunction with appropriate committee shall be responsible for providing policy and procedures for lower stock. So also the procedure for lower stock as well as the card. Lower stock as at the institution facility, the policy shall include a specific drugs quantity, prescriptions order review, storage requirement, and replenishment of drugs, devices, or related materials, which are supplied to the institution facility as lower stock. Upon request, the board may waive selected portion of these. So it seems like the board can waive selected portion for any rules so far. Controlled drugs, 1140 or 408. Controlled substance, that's important parts here. Controlled substance and those drugs deemed by the pharmacist in charge to have potential for abuse, which is our issue as a floor stock, shall be accounted for by providing these things here. One, the drug name, strength, and dosage form, the date and time of administration, the quantity, dose, the quantity, dose administrations, identification of the patient, identification of the prescriber, identification of the authorized person who administered the drug substance. A record of the destructions of the controlled substance previously dispensed or to or from patients shall be maintained so as to be readily retrievable for 2 years. Okay, so all the record for destructions of controlled substance should be readily retrievable and be retrievable and be on file for 2 years. So that's a very important point. And shall include the destructions of controlled substance, shall include these informations, identification of the patients that was the controlled substance drug was dispensed to, the drug name, of course, the strength, dosage form, and quantity, the date and the method of destructions, how actually destroyed the drug, the identification of authorized personnel witnessing the destructions and its record. Schedule 2 controlled substance, which are kept within the pharmacy practice site, shall be stored in a secure, substantially constructed cabinet, safe, or other structure which is provide a double locked secure system. So that's very important. Be a question on the exam. Where Schedule 2 controlled substance gets secured, the answer will be a double locked secure system. Okay, so nothing in this rule shall be interpreted to authorize the destruction of controlled substance, floor stock or pharmacy stock. Such a drug shall, our request, be destroyed or returned in a pharmacy for destructions by the board approved agents or vendor. Our request, the board may waive selected portions. Same thing here. Rule 1140/0409, emergency and home care kits. That's important here. Drugs and devices and related materials may be provided by emergency kit as defined by policies and procedures, provided as that such kits meet the following requirement. First, emergency kits. Drugs and devices and related materials may be provided by emergency kit as defined by policies and procedures, provided that such a kit meets the following requirement. 1, emergency kit drugs are those drugs which may be required to meet immediate therapeutic needs of patients and which are not available from other authorized source in sufficient time to prevent the risk of harm to the patient. So, like they use these emergency kits if the pharmacy is closed, and these emergency kits can be used, and it's very important that you know everything about that. So, to be authorized sufficient to prevent any harm to the patient, drugs in this kit are to be used only by emergency orders, so only in emergency situations. The policy and procedures to implement the requirement of these subsections and to approve the content of the emergency kit will be determined by the committee composed of representative of the medicinal and nursing staff and the pharmacist in charge. Emergency kit shall be provided. This is important here. Emergency kit shall provide a sealed, electronically secured by authorized personnel in accordance with established policy. The expiration date of the kit shall be clearly marked on the exterior of the kit. So every kit should have the expiration date outside, and it depends, and it goes by the earliest expiration date by any drugs inside the kit. So clearly marked exterior outside the kit represented the early expiration date of any drug, device, or related materials contained in the kit. That's important. Emergency kit shall be stored in a secured area at the institution facility or the patient care site. So at the institution facility, it was like maybe like a nursing home or at the patient care side at the nursing home to prevent unauthorized access, to ensure a proper environment for preservations of the drugs contained therein. Appropriate policy and procedures shall be written to include storage and the site of patient care. Only authorized individuals may obtain drugs. Only assigned to obtain drug devices related materials from the emergency kit in accordance with established policy and state and federal laws and regulations. A list of emergency kit content shall be readily accessible, and it shall include the drugs, devices, and related materials contained therein, include the name of trade or generic, strains, quantity of the products contained therein. A mechanism must be in place to ensure that the emergency kits are not in use after the expiration date. Drugs contained within the emergency kit shall be properly labeled according to the United States Food and Drug Administration's FDA labeling requirement for the drug. So the labeling decided by the FDA requirement for the drug and device, and with additional information that may be required by the staff to prevent misunderstanding of the risk of harm to the patient. Removal, this is important point, removal of any drug device related materials from the emergency kit shall be pursuant to only valid, so you only can do it based on a valid medication order or prescription order from the doctor or the prescriber who prescribed that medication for the patients. So you don't access it without a prescription order, and must be documented and established policy, which may include patient identification, name of the drug, and standard amount, date, and time of and identification of the authorized individuals removing the drug. When an emergency kit is open, that's important point too. Anytime the kit is open for any reason, the pharmacy practice site shall be notified, and the kit shall be restocked. Anything you take from the kit, replace it. That way the kit is always full of stock and resealed again within a reasonable time, so that to prevent any risk of harm to the patient. So that way, if there's any time you need that medication again, you have it. So every time you access the medication, the emergency kit, you notify the pharmacy go there and restock it and seal it. Home care kits, which is important concept here. So a home care kits, the difference between home care kits and emergency kits. Home care kits is always at the home of the patient, as it sounds like home care kits. A home care kit is a kit containing certain drugs as determined by the board to be kept in the home of the patients for use by the healthcare practitioners. So basically, to use by the healthcare practitioner will come out of the home and will leave that kit at the home and access to the patient. So most likely the patient will not be able to have care for themselves. So the healthcare provider will come home, use that home care kits to provide the medication and the home care to the patient. And then the home care to the patient as necessary to meet the therapeutic needs of the patient, and which are not available from any other source in sufficient time to prevent the risk of harm. It's like a patient cannot go anywhere if it's disabled. That's the only way he could get care. So for home care kits, the home care kits may contain these followings, and this is important to know. The sodium chloride, 0.9 bacteriostatic, sterile water for injection, bacteriostatic or preservative-free, epinephrine injection, 1 milligram per milliliter, diphenhydramine, Benadryl, heparin flush, 1,000 units per milliliters or less, naloxone, can be used that like opioid overdose, reverse it. Sodium chloride for irrigations, sterile water for irrigation, dextrose 50%, urokinase 5,000 units, any other ligand drugs as approved by the board. Drugs contained in the home care kits are to be used for emergency only. So both the home care kits and emergency kit only for emergency situations. Maintenance or central venues catheters is considered an emergency if confirmed with a patient physician or her designee. Policy and procedure for dispensing use, storage, and at the at the patient care site, security and expiration date review, and the reconciliation of drug content shall be determined in this section. And this rule, additional policy for protocols for treating anaphylactic reactions, maintaining patency of IV or central venous catheters or flushing of the IV devices shall be established in the same manner. Removing of any drug from the home care kits shall be pursuant to a valid medical or prescription order. So same idea here. You have to have a prescription order to access the home care kits and must be documented in the patient medical record. When home care kits is open for any reason, pharmacy has to be notified and go there and restock and seal within a reasonable time so that the patient prevent patient from risk of harm to the patient. Rule of 1140-0410, unused drugs, devices, and related materials. Discontinued, outdated, defective, or deteriorated drugs, devices, related materials, and containers with worn illegibles or missing labels shall be returned to the pharmacy practice site for a proper disposition. All such drugs, devices, or related materials returned to the pharmacy practice site must be destroyed. So everything come to the pharmacy must be destroyed unless in a unit dose packaging. So low in unit dose, if it's in unit dose packaging, unopened, commercially rebagged container. So it's like never opened. And then the professional judgment of the pharmacist in charge, designee, the medication or related materials meet all the federal and state board and the state board standard for product integrity. So everything returned needs to be destroyed, unused drugs or devices, unless if it's a unit dose packaging or it's unopened and it meets integrity. I would request the board may waive selected portion of this requirement as long as it's waived granted by it's consistent with the board authority under the tenancy code annotated. It's the same thing here. The rule of 1140-0411, home, take home and leave of absent drugs, devices, and related materials. We'll do that in a separate video. That's enough for that one.